What if leadership isn't about pushing through until retirement, but about becoming the version of yourself your life needs right now? Welcome to the Lead with Hope podcast for leaders ready to lead differently without losing themselves. I'm your host, Brandi Kelly, and here we talk about real leadership, the habits we build, the optimism we protect, the purpose that grounds us, and the excellence that sustains us. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Lindsey Hall, educator, mentor, and coach. Her leadership journey spans from the classroom to the superintendency. And in this conversation, Lindsey shares powerful insights on work-life harmony, the invisible weight women leaders carry, knowing when to end a role with grace and integrity, and why finding joy now matters more than ever. If you're a leader who feels tired, stretched, or quietly wondering, is there a better way? This conversation is for you. Welcome to Lead with Hope. Before we get started, I want to thank our legacy partner, Craig Williams, founder of Commissary. At Spark Hope, we believe that story matters because story shapes how we lead, how we connect, and how we show up in the world. Commissary helps authors and leaders bring clarity to their story and confidence to their voice so their brand truly reflects who they are. You can learn more about their work by visiting the link in today's show notes or on the Spark Hope website. Thank you, Commissary, for supporting the Lead with Hope podcast. Welcome to the Lead with Hope podcast, where we explore the power of habits, optimism, purpose, and excellence in leadership and life. Today, I'm honored to welcome Lindsey Hall to the show, and Lindsey and I met at an ACE meeting. ACE stands for Allyship, Connection, and Engagement, and it's a meeting that she hosts monthly for school leaders. And I met her when I was still serving as a superintendent. I've been inspired by Lindsey, and I'm learning more about her now, what you're doing now, and your journey to where you are present day.
Oh, well, thank you, Brandi. And it's been great to meet you and get to know you. And I should say that you were a guest speaker on our ACE Zoom meeting back in September and did such a great job. And we got lots of positive feedback about how inspirational and positive you were. So it's been wonderful to be able to connect with you. And I'm honored to talk with you today. Thank you for the invitation to do this. Okay, so I come from, I won't, go into my whole family history, but I do come from a family of educators, and it's never what I thought I would do. Even in college, I was pretty lost and wasn't exactly sure what degree to get and didn't really know what I wanted to do, and took kind of a long and indirect path to getting my teaching certificate, as they were called back in the day, here in Illinois. And my first teaching job was at Danville High School here in Illinois, and I had a great time there. It was a very large, diverse high school, and I got to teach health education all day, which I really loved doing. And I had a female principal who was very inspiring, very much a role model. That was pretty rare. Still is. That's not the majority of high school principals are not female, but Ellen Russell was really inspiring. And there's also a dean of students that I really looked up to. And so I loved teaching, and I loved teaching the subject I taught, but I immediately got inspired to go get my Type 75 at Eastern Illinois University, and got that and started looking for administrative jobs because I don't know, I felt a calling to do it. It looked fun and interesting, and I'm someone who needs a lot of kind of variety and change up during the day. So that certainly describes administration. And a couple years later, I was fortunate enough to be hired as a junior high assistant principal in Mahomet Seymour. I ended up staying in Mahomet Seymour for 11 years. 8 of those years, I was the principal at the junior high and just loved it. It's a great school district. And of course, I didn't know then that I would end up coming back to Mahomet Seymour as a superintendent in 2017. But in between that time, after I'd been in Mahomet Seymour as the junior high principal, I moved up north with my family and became the high school principal at DeKalb High School, and did that for 4 years. Then I moved into an assistant superintendent's position there for 3 years, overseeing human resources. Really high energy place to work. A lot of days of just drinking from the fire hose and trying to put out fires at the same time. But I learned so much. And really, being an assistant superintendent in a district that size, had 6,000 kids, really prepared me well for my first superintendent's job, which was in Morton. And this is Morton, Illinois, over by Peoria. And so I was a superintendent there for 5 years. And then I finished my career as the superintendent in Mahomet Seymour from 2017 to 2022, and I retired in 2022. So that's my professional life. I feel very, very fortunate to have had a very understanding and supportive family. As we know, these jobs are incredibly demanding, take a lot of time away. At different points, I was my children's principal, either in junior high or high school. I think the jury's still out for them. They're in their 30s now about whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. But we talked during the day if they'd see me. I wasn't, completely disowned by them. But I also had the opportunity to earn my doctorate from the University of Illinois along the way. Just the variety and size and different types of school districts I worked in was really something that made my work really interesting and fun. And I loved the jobs that I did. They were great. So I feel very, very blessed. And now I work at Illinois State University part-time, which is wonderful. And I feel retired, but I'm still working. It's not the grind of being a superintendent, and it's not the high stress and pressure that goes with it. But I coordinate the administrative licensure programs in the College of Education. And then I also do some coaching for IASA and principal mentoring with IPA. And I present administrator academies with one of my good friends as well. So feeling really good about the space that I'm in.
Yeah, the space that you're in right now is the space that I'm in. I've launched my business and I'm still working
Mm-hmm.
full time, but I am able to pour into other people and just focus on that growth and helping people to become the best version of themselves. Because as you said, and you've got a wealth of experience in different educational leadership roles, it is a grind. And there
Yeah.
is a lot of stress that is put on your plate. So speaking specifically for women in leadership, I too, like you, have mentees. I just finished my IPA aspiring mandatory webinar today, and the aspiring women leaders, what would you say to them?
Mm-hmm.
What's a piece of advice that you would give to them if they're listening today?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, my first thought is you are needed in the field. So please don't give up and don't, there's so many different places to work and things to do in public education as an administrator and as a building leader or as a district leader. It's very important that you find the right place to work and surround yourself with the right people, which I feel personally I was very fortunate to be able to do. And there's tremendous guilt out that women carry about I'm not giving enough anywhere, not to my job, not to my family, not to my home. And there is a significant mental load that women carry. I'm not saying that men don't carry that. What I'm saying is it looks very different. Our roles at home are different and we approach work differently. And so I think I would tell female leaders just to be aware of that and also know that I'm going to use a term from my friend and colleague, Dr. Donna Leak, who's a superintendent in the south suburbs of Chicago. And she's also the vice chair of the ISB board right now. And she's a great leader. She calls it work-life integration instead of work-life balance, because there will be weeks and when, you'll have a week that's extremely busy and you're not home much, but then there'll be other times when you can be home more. And so I think just communicating with your family, having a partner or some type of support system is very important. Asking for help. We are terrible at doing that. I was terrible at doing that when my kids were younger, and you don't have to do all of this alone. And I would also say just networking with other people and other women in the field and leaning on each other for support and hope.
For sure. I read a book called Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. And a
Hmm.
lot of talk, a lot of training, a lot of planning that goes into onboarding and getting that right job and preparing to be an administrator. But let's be honest, it's not always a good fit. Sometimes we make that leap and we go to another school district and we decide to lead as a teacher leader or a principal or a superintendent or maybe a different role. And if the values don't align, if there's not that alignment there, then
Hmm.
sometimes endings are necessary. And I believe that we need to do a better job helping people to end with grace and with integrity so that there's not the shame and the blame that goes
Hmm.
along with that. And I think women
Yeah.
especially are very emotionally intelligent. The vast majority of us are very emotionally intelligent, very empathetic in our leadership, the way that we lead. And I would love to see more being done around ending with grace and integrity.
Yeah, I fully agree. We should quit more stuff.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yes.
is what I
Yes.
think.
Absolutely.
In fact, I sometimes in coaching conversations, instead of talking about starting things and adding more, the conversation I have sometimes is, what can you stop? Let's
Mhm.
talk about what we can stop doing that's not effective. But I agree about, graciously and gracefully exiting a situation when it's not working out. The reality is in the superintendency, that just happens. I think when you explain to other people who are not superintendents or who haven't been, hey, my group of bosses changes over potentially every 2 years. That's a really interesting dynamic that a lot of other places don't have to, and occupations don't. It's really foreign, but it's our reality and can
People
be really
don't
hard.
They don't understand that, and then in addition to that, you talk about the mental load. You have 7 bosses who have never been
Hmm.
an educator for the most
Yep.
part. Now, sometimes during my superintendency, I was fortunate. I had 2 people on the board who had been educators. They had been or were teachers. At the time that I served as a superintendent, I had a primary teacher on the board and I had a college professor who had
Hmm.
been a teacher in a public school system. And so I was fortunate and that was felt in the discussions that we had around academics and achievement scores and um things like standardized testing. But not everybody has that. Sometimes the whole
Hmm.
board may be farmers or business owners or people that have never worked in education before. And, you and I both led in different school districts during COVID, which presented a whole nother dynamic, a more political dynamic to the landscape of education. Talk to us a little bit about the tension that you felt as a superintendent with a difficult board during COVID.
Yeah, it was bad for everybody. So I want.
Yeah.
I mean, no one wanted, or no one was functioning, very well during that whole era. But in 2019, prior to the pandemic starting and school shutting down, in the 2019 election in April of that year, my board experienced a turnover, and 3 people were elected who were frankly just very difficult to work with until I retired 3 years later. In hindsight, I'm sure some of it was me. I had made some decisions prior to their election that they didn't agree with, and so had other members of the board, but they clearly had their own ideas about how decisions should be made and how meetings should be run, and it was very much in contrast to what is best practice and to what some of the principles are of running effective meetings and agenda building and having kind of working agreements about how we're going to communicate with one another. And so that happened a year before we shut down. And so when your board is struggling to get along and work together and work with the superintendent, when a worldwide pandemic hits and you close down schools, the problems are kind of exacerbated. And so it's
Yeah.
not like you start getting along all of a sudden. So the difficult board was difficult enough on its own, but then we overlaid everything that came with COVID-19 as it relates to schools and communities. And my board was very kind of politically split also on the directives we were receiving and things like masks and COVID testing and um, quarantining students. So it was a constant. The word that comes to mind is battle. And we were having 5 and 6 hour board meetings before the pandemic. That's not appropriate. No one should be making decisions to me after about 9 o'clock at night, let alone 11 p.m. Admittedly, I'm not at my best. No one is. And so it was an embarrassment to our community, to be very honest. And from my standpoint, my board president and I were working together to try as much as we can and as much as we could to have some positive working relationships. And at some point, there's a lot of things that are just out of your control. I mean, I tried I don't know, what seemed like hundreds and hundreds of different angles, strategies, ways to try to just communicate more effectively with these three people, and nothing really worked. And at the end of the day, the impact is on the children who attend your schools. And if we're talking about role modeling and being effective leaders and being in a position that's very visible, our board meetings were all live streamed. It was a bad optic. And my goal was to just be as gracious as I could. It was extremely difficult. And I know there's times that I lost my patience. And so, I had originally planned to retire in 2023. That my contract was a contract that took me to my retirement. And in the fall of 2021, I just had a realization that I needed to retire a year early, and for my own health. And when I say my own health, I mean mentally, physically, emotionally, socially. Every aspect of my health needed to be addressed. And I didn't see the value in just kind of crawling through my last year of being a superintendent. I needed just to get out, and so I did. November of 21, I made that decision and literally came home at like 12:30 a.m. from a board meeting and crawled into bed. And I just told my husband, I'm done at the end of this school year. And I think he don't remember the exact response, but there was not disappointment expressed. But kudos to him for kind of letting me find my own way. But I wasn't sleeping. One of our kids was having very serious health issues. A grown kid, but we were caring for him, and it was a lot. And I just realized my family needed a much better version of me.
Mhm. Kudos.
And so did I.
Yeah. Kudos to you for making that bold step because with
Thanks.
1 year left, a lot of people would just continue to push through. I mean, that's our culture. Our culture tells
Yeah.
just keep pushing. You can do it. Keep pushing,
Hmm.
showing up. And they shame us when we prioritize the things that we're for in this life. I've just started reading a book by Jeff Henderson called What You're For. And when you know
Mhm.
what you're for, what your priorities are, when you're value aligned and you know what you're for, I think that magnifies our purpose, and our lives
Yeah.
are not defined by those roles like superintendent or principal or even, you know, even mom and dad. I mean, we are more than that.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you for
No, thank
acknowledging
you.
that and for making that bold step. And then also coming on the show and talking about it. That took a lot of vulnerability and courage.
I have to say that I got a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah.
Um, I was just barely not fully vested in TRS. And I guess one thing that was surprising to me is I had a number of people ask me about that. And that struck me as none of your business. Can manage my finances. Thank you. But and I've thought this through also. This was not an impulsive decision. There just came this very clear vision thought. I, like whatever money's left on the table, I don't care about.
Yeah. It's not worth
I
it.
don't. Yeah, and I love some of the ways that you worded about, just your values aligning. And my values were like, I don't want to impair myself anymore.
Right. Yeah. Because
I can't.
you don't know what that stress is going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my last year of the superintendency, I started dealing with a lot of health issues, and I'm fine, but I'm still navigating some of the ramifications of
Hmm.
that heavy mental load. And I won't
Yeah.
go to detail with that, but stress takes a toll on your life. And when my mom was just 44 years old, I got to see that play out in her life. And she did
Hmm.
press through. She pressed through. She just kept going. And, she was of a different generation than I am. But
Yeah.
the end result, 6 months after a diagnosis with cancer, and she was dead. And
Yeah.
so I think for me, seeing that firsthand and seeing what stress can do when um, when it starts having those health issues, pay attention. And I would say that to the listeners too. If your body is
Yeah.
sending you signs, if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating, if you're having intestinal or digestive issues to the point that it's impairing your daily functioning, consider making a change because you only get one shot at
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
we all carry a lot of mental load. We carry trauma, some of us. We carry heavy burdens. And, for me, grief has been part of my experience. For
Mhm.
you, Lindsay, I know it's been part of yours as well. So when you reflect back on your journey and you look at everything, what would be your biggest takeaways or what would be your aha moment
Mm.
that you can now talk about?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm thank you for sharing those stories and about your mom. When the stress was so high during COVID, and for me, it was not just COVID; it was also dealing with my board again, who had very conflicting views on just how to move forward and how to have school. I just want to say I had some amazing people I was working with. I have an amazing family, and I would say that I was able to find joy, different things that were not work. and but I also found there are ways I could still find joy in doing the work. And I think that that's something, we talked about what advice or what would you say to administrators or people thinking about going into the field, and that is your life is right now. Finding joy and purpose is so important now as opposed to I'll do it later or I'll do it when I retire or um, uh, any number of things that we kick the can down the road. I mean, we do when you think about it, we do a lot of countdowns
Mhm.
in schools.
Yeah.
I could go into a school right now, find a teacher who's retiring at the end of this year, and they could tell me, yeah, I've got 95 days, 14 hours, and 3 minutes left. The countdown, right? Or yeah, I've got 18 days to Christmas break, and we get into that mindset of just thinking that somehow something's much better down the road, and sometimes it is. And sometimes life just continues to happen. And so my family went through a very difficult time shortly after I retired. I, of course, was looking forward to not being a superintendent, just to be very honest. I mean, I was just looking forward to not working the hours, not having the pressure, for me, my top priority was I've got to get my sleep in order. That for me was what was really, really hurting me. And about 7 months after I retired, one of our kids was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. And it was a pretty aggressive brain tumor. It was pretty nasty from the very beginning. And the outlook and the life expectancy after the diagnosis it was like 3 to 5 years in best case scenario. And so we started on this journey. My stepson F, who's was 37 at the time, and we partnered with Jeff's mom, my husband and I, and did a lot of driving to get him to where he needed to go for radiation and chemo and rehab. But the tumor, I mean, it's just the word vicious comes to mind because it impaired him physically in so many ways. It was on his brainstem. And so things at the beginning of his treatment looked hopeful. And then they started to not look so hopeful after about 6 months after diagnosis. By January of 2024, he was receiving hospice care and he passed away in March of 2024. And he was just 37. And um, I will say that an experience like that puts many things in perspective. There's a great quote from a rabbi, and I can't remember his last name, but the quote is, "If you're going to go through hell, don't come out empty-handed." And I've taken that to heart, and that there were a lot of things to learn. And just this morning, I read in one of my devotionals that quote that said, "There's a message in the mess." While we are heartbroken and we could do podcasts on grief because it's just such a weird, strange journey, we will always be heartbroken about this. But we have other parts of our family and our lives that are very joyful. We've got grandchildren and our other children who are grown-ups, but they're thriving. But that journey it's hard and it's awful to watch someone who's going through it and you feel helpless. But
I'm so sorry that
thank you.
family has experienced that, and it is grief is a weird thing. And
Mm,
in my life, my brother Brandon drowned, so he was here one day,
mm,
on the next.
yeah.
My mom had cancer. She died, after 5 months
Mm,
after the diagnosis. My dad had Parkinson's. He suffered with that disease, and it just a
yeah.
steady decline. But I've always said that cancer, it strips us. It strips us I remember I helped my mom use the restroom. I combed her hair. I bathed her. I did everything for her. She said it stripped her of everything.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Lindsay, especially in those difficult moments. If we will allow it, life will teach us. I'm
Yeah.
working on a devotion right now. It's called When Life Speaks. Life is always speaking to us, and God
Yeah.
is speaking to us through those moments. We grow. That's when we grow the most, is during
Yeah.
that time of adversity. And I think
Mhm.
you have definitely had your fair share of adversity. But when you think about how you still find the joy in the journey, what are the things that give you those glimmers of hope, that joy in your life?
Yeah. And I think it's very important to feel all of the emotions, most importantly, the hard ones. So, in finding joy, that doesn't mean ignoring other stuff. And, I wish this hadn't that Jeff had not lost his battle with cancer because he was a blessing to this world and to other people. And he brought joy, um, in so many ways to so many other people. He was very involved in community theater. He directed some productions with the Penguin Project, with special needs kids. I mean, that his heart was so big. And in just progressing through the whole journey, there's just little things along the way that you take with you that are very they're meaningful. And that's what I meant by, don't come out of hell empty-handed. You still need to go through it, but there's definitely some things that we think about. And I will say this, that after going and continuing our journey without one of our 4 kids here with us, it makes everything with my school board seem really dumb. Just to be very honest, I can just think of some of the debates, arguments, and silly, silly things that we were talking about that were very rapidly put into perspective when you have a terminally ill child. And again, I say child, he was a grown child, but you always look at your kids.
They're always our
Um,
kids. They're always our
yeah,
children, no matter how old
yeah,
they get. And you're right. I mean, it's all about that perspective.
mhm,
It's like that. It definitely puts the important things in life into
yeah,
perspective.
yeah, and we're not, we're one of millions of families who face battles with cancer and other tragedies. And I just hope that people just think about that sometimes this is part of life. It's survivable. It can be there's hard days, but there's also good days, and there's glimmers, and there's people who say and do wonderful things. There's also people who say and do pretty strange things, but you have to kind of say, like, I'm pretty sure they meant well. But
Really. Yeah. And I'm just grateful that you shared your story. Let's pause for just a moment because I want to tell you about a partner who truly aligns with the heart of this podcast.
Conversary.
Here on Lead with Hope, we talk a lot about clarity of purpose, clarity of voice, and clarity of direction. And that's exactly where Conversary comes in. They help leaders, educators, and change makers uncover the story behind their work and share it in a way that feels honest, meaningful, and deeply aligned with who they are. If you've ever felt the nudge to write a book, refine your message, or build a brand that actually reflects your values, not just your resume, Conversary doesn't rush you or box you in. They walk alongside you, helping you shape your story with intention and integrity. You can learn more by clicking their link in the show notes or visiting them through the Spark Hope website. A big thank you to Craig Williams at Conversary for being a legacy sponsor of this podcast and for investing in stories that matter. Because when we share our stories with clarity and hope, real change happens.
I thank you for the opportunity.
Sometimes our stories are what somebody else needs to know, to hear,
Mhm.
so that they have the fuel to get through the next day, the next moment, whatever they're facing. Because you know what? You've faced it. You've faced the difficult board. You have faced the life-changing diagnosis. You've faced the loss of a child, which I can't imagine anything worse than that as a mother. But you've survived it. And I think through sharing our stories, that gives other people hope.
Yeah, I
Lindsay,
hope so.
as
I
we
hope
close
so.
out this podcast today, what's giving you hope in the world right now?
What's giving me hope? Well, it is interesting that we would talk about that word this week because Sunday was the first Sunday in Advent. And for those of us that celebrate Christmas, the word of this week is hope. So I think our world is in a really troubled place right now, but I see people doing good things all the time, like you, and doing this podcast and just making a positive difference in the lives of others. And I think we just have to remember that there's these giant global problems that I can't fix, you can't fix. We can't even fix other people. We can't fix other people in our family if we wanted to, but we can individually make decisions and I think that just brings hope and joy and love and kindness into other people's lives. So I think that's important to remember this week. But I so appreciate the conversation with you, Brandi. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. And that's a great reminder, Lindsay, that the big things are the little things. It's in those simple acts of kindness,
Hmm.
things that we do just to brighten somebody else's day. We are the light. We can choose to be the light of the world. And so I hope that if you're listening to this show today, that you will choose to go out and do a random act of kindness. Share some light and some hope in the world today. So, Lindsay, as we end today, if the listeners want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
I would love that. I think the easiest way is probably my personal email is LAHall, HALL, 21864 @gmail.com.
Well, thank
You
you.
can also find me on the Illinois State University website.
I will
That-
add your information, Lindsay, in the show notes, but thank you for coming on the show today. I've enjoyed our conversation,
Me too.
and I hope we can stay in contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brandi.
If you're listening today and thinking, I love what I do, but I'm exhausted, hear this clearly. You're not broken. You're a capable leader operating in an unsustainable system, and there is a better way to lead. That's exactly why I created the Hope Fueled Leadership Kickstart, a focused, high-impact private coaching experience designed to help you reclaim your clarity, confidence, and sense of purpose. Through targeted assessments and deep dive coaching around your mindset, habits, purpose, and passions, we build sustainable leadership systems that support excellence without costing you your health, your family, or your identity. By the end of this experience, you'll leave with your personalized hope and action plan, a clear, practical roadmap to help you lead with confidence, connection, and courage, even in complex environments. I would be honored to walk alongside you as we design leadership practices that prevent burnout and create lasting impact. If you're ready to lead with clarity, confidence, and hope, visit sparkhopeedu.com and book your free discovery call today. I'm excited to get started, and I'm cheering for you. As we close today, remember this: the world needs your leadership now more than ever. If this conversation encouraged you, challenged you, or reminded you that you're not alone, here's one simple way you can help us spread hope. Follow the Lead with Hope podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. Those few seconds help this message reach leaders who need it most. And if today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or a colleague, someone who could use a reminder that they matter, that their work matters, and that hope still belongs in leadership. Change doesn't start with systems or titles. It starts with you. Fuel your life with hope, embrace your purpose, and never underestimate the power of your light to lead the way for others. I'm cheering you on, always.